A far-left admitted Antifa member murdered a Trump supporter in the city of Portland just 48 hours after Mayor Ted Wheeler of the city of Portland publicly declined President Trump's offer to send federal troops into the city to help quell the violence. Now, he's declined federal assistance multiple times, actually. And what have we seen? We've seen 90 days straight of riots, protests, burnings, shootings, attacks in the city of Portland. It's no surprise why we just saw that recent report from Business Insider saying that businesses are leaving en masse. Hundreds of businesses plan to pick up and leave. Thousands of residents are leaving the city of Portland, as they are many other cities across the country. But like I said, this happened just 48 hours after Mayor Ted Wheeler declined the federal assistance from President Trump. Now, many people are saying that this man was a member of the Patriot Prayer Group, who the media is slandering as a far-right group. But, of course, just look at some of their leaders, what they have said. Look at some of the speakers for the Patriot Prayer Group at some of their rallies, and I wouldn't even really consider them conservative, honestly. Just look at some of the leaders, look at some of the speakers. But, of course, this is how the media acts. Now, this man, this Antifa member, who admits that he's 100% Antifa, has a giant Black Lives Matter logo tattooed on the side of the neck, which is definitely new. You can tell the ink is new, just since the death of George Floyd, probably. The Antifa member was arrested before. He was arrested before for illegally possessing a firearm, but yet he was let go, and yet he still had a firearm, and yet he still shot this Trump supporter in the city of Portland. He also wrote a manifesto, which we have the story up on the redelephants.com. We're going to go over that as well, and a lot more. Before we get started, I just want to remind you to check out the links in the description below and to go to either preparewithvincent.com or waterwithvincent.com. This is a great way to support me here. I get a pretty large portion of every single order at preparewithvincent.com and waterwithvincent.com. At preparewithvincent.com, you can get $100 off of a 4-week emergency dry food supply. This dry food supply has a 25-year shelf life. This 4-week supply is actually cheaper than 4 weeks of food at your local grocery store. It has 284 servings, 12 different food varieties, 2,000 calories a day. And the 1-week emergency dry food supply is back up on the site and ready to order as well. At waterwithvincent.com, you can get about $100 off an Alexa Pure Pro water filtration system. Filters up to 5,000 gallons of water, removes 200-plus contaminants, including fluoride, viruses, bacteria, pesticides, and pharmaceuticals. So if you're thinking about stocking up on dry food supply, water filtration, things like this, do it through My Patriot Supply, but do it through this channel. It helps me out tremendously. Both links are in the description below to use to give me credit. Preparewithvincent.com and waterwithvincent.com. So let's get to this first story here. This is on the redelephants.com. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler declines federal riot assistance just 48 hours before Antifa terrorist assassinates Trump supporter in Portland. Now, why are we calling him an Antifa terrorist? Well, we're calling him an Antifa terrorist because, and he, wrote this letter and he publicly tweeted it out to show Orange Man, to show how much he believes that Orange Man is bad. 48 hours later, someone else is dead. It's almost like with Seattle and what we saw with Seattle and other cities. We're going to touch on that as well. But the reason why we're calling him an Antifa member is because he admits, quote, I am 100% Antifa. Alleged Portland shooter was previously arrested and released for bringing illegal loaded gun to a riot. The man being investigated by police in the fatal shooting of a Trump supporter in Portland identifies as Antifa and is an ardent Black Lives Matter supporter. Michael Forrest Rienol was previously arrested at an Antifa riot in July and charged with illegally possessing a loaded firearm and other crimes. He was let go, and the charges were never pursued. He allegedly went to kill Aaron J. Danielson on Saturday night in downtown Portland. And Tucker Carlson talked about this on his show as well. We're going to play you a clip from Tucker Carlson talking about the recent arrest of this Antifa member. Check this out right now.
In fact, the suspect in this murder in Portland has been arrested twice just this summer for unlawfully carrying a loaded gun. He never went to jail. In one case, the one in Portland, the same people who tell you how much they abhor gun violence let this man go. Then he apparently murdered someone. Joe Biden did not mention this today. BLM was happy about the killing. BLM does not believe that all lives matter. They don't say they do, and they don't. They believe people who oppose them should be killed.
And that is absolutely true. That is absolutely 100% true. Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. There's really no other way to describe Black Lives Matter other than a terrorist organization. In fact, if you just look up the definition of terrorist, you will find that it describes people who have a political goal, who are using violence to achieve that political goal. Now, that is Antifa, and that is also Black Lives Matter. There have been, 50 people killed just since the death of George Floyd alone, many cops shot at. And that's besides all of the other billions of dollars in destruction that has occurred just since the death of George Floyd alone. But yeah, this man has been arrested. But I wonder who released him. Well, could it be none other than Mike Schmidt, the district attorney of Multnomah County, which contains Portland, who is buddy-buddy with Antifa members, who has been seen on podcasts talking with known Antifa members, known members of a tight-knit Antifa group in Portland, admitted Antifa members. He gets congratulated by Antifa members on his win as district attorney there. And then let's look at San Francisco. I talk about Chesa Boudin all the time. These two are one and the same. Except for Chesa Boudin, he actually has parents who were involved in the 60s unrest, who were involved in 60s left-wing terrorist attacks. His adopted mom, Bernadine Dorn, adopted father, Bill Ayers, they started the Weather Underground movement. Look at his biological parents, who are in prison right now for left-wing terrorism. And this is Multnomah County Mike Schmidt, and District Attorney Chesa Boudin in San Francisco, who even the police officers call a communist as well. Now, Donald Trump was asked, because he was talking about the Trump supporter who was shot by this Antifa member, because he's been talking about Antifa for the longest time. I just wish that he would designate Antifa a terrorist organization officially, at least the ones that are actually organized, at least the groups that are actually organized, like Rose City Antifa and a few others. But he talks about Antifa all the time, and the reporters asked him, well, what about your supporter who shot 2 protesters? And he rightly defended, Kyle Rittenhouse in this clip. Take a look at this clip now.
Go ahead,
It was a supporter of yours, Mr. President.
Are you going to condemn the action?
It was a supporter of yours, Mr. President, who killed someone that is accused of killing 2 people. It's a supporter of yours.
Saying, are you going to condemn the actions of vigilantes like Kyle Rittenhouse?
Well, we're looking at all of it. That was an interesting situation. You saw the same tape as I saw, and he was trying to get away from them, I guess, it looks like, and he fell, and then they very violently attacked him. And it was something that we're looking at right now, and it's under investigation. But I guess he was in very big trouble. He would have been. He probably would have been killed. But it's under investigation.
And so these 2 shootings are completely different. But of course, the media is trying to draw parallels where parallels do not belong. If you look at the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, of course, Kyle Rittenhouse was chased down twice. There was one man who shot a round into the air, who fired a shot into the air as protesters, as rioters were chasing down Kyle Rittenhouse. So Kyle Rittenhouse has no idea. The threat's even more credible then, as these people are chasing him down, because he doesn't know if they're shooting at him. But he tripped, he fell, right, the second time. He was chased down the first time, the same thing basically happened, and he fired shots in self-defense. Now, the original narrative by the mainstream media, they're going to pay big time for this, I think, because now the Covington Catholic Kid lawyers are backing Kyle Rittenhouse. But the original narrative was that he transported this firearm across state lines illegally. Untrue. He actually got this weapon from a person who was in Wisconsin. The other narrative was that, and I got this wrong as well, was that he traveled across state lines to participate in this like militia member rally, right? This riot, this protest that occurred. But that's not true either. He was working as a lifeguard in the state when the riots began to break out. And so but this was like the mainstream narrative for CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, Washington Post, The Guardian, all of these different people, all of these different outlets were saying this exact same thing, and this is exactly how the Covington Catholic story played out. So I think the media outlets are going to pay big time if Kyle Rittenhouse gets off, which he will be very lucky if this actually happens. But I have to contrast this one more time with the story that we heard out of the Frederick County Fair. Right, so there was a black teen who punched a white man and killed him. He killed him, and he was a teenager as well. I think he was 17 at the time, 16 at the time, just a year younger than Kyle Rittenhouse. Well, this man got anger management courses, and this is exactly how it goes time and time and time again with black criminals. And we see this in San Francisco the most, especially with Chesa Boudin, who recent reports showed that he was reaching out to people who were victims of burglaries that have happened in the area, as burglaries in San Francisco jumped 45%. He was calling these victims of these burglaries, where the perpetrator was black especially, and asking them to drop their charges to further restorative justice for an oppressed people. This is what Chesa Boudin was doing in San Francisco, the DA there. We also have this tweet from Andy No as well, which we'll bring up right now. And it says, the Antifa member investigated for shooting the Portland Trump supporter is Michael Renault. I think that's how you pronounce that. This is what Tucker Carlson was talking about. Last month, he was arrested at another Antifa riot for illegally carrying a loaded gun. He was let go. He then went on to allegedly kill Aaron Danielson. And so this is the person who was arrested, and he was let go. He had a firearm illegally, and he was able to yet use another firearm after he was let go to kill Aaron Danielson. Also, he brought his daughter to the rally. I don't know if anyone knew about this, but he brought his daughter to the rally. This was the knife that he had on there and the firearm that he had. But he brought his daughter to the rally, and his daughter was armed with a bat. Talk about a great father figure there. How in the hell did he even get custody of his daughter if this is the way that if this is how he fathers his daughter? Also, we have this story up on the redelephants.com. Alleged Antifa shooter who assassinated a Trump supporter in Portland wrote basically a manifesto on Instagram. He says, every revolution needs people that are willing and ready to fight. There are so many of us protesters that are just protesting without a clue of where that will lead. This is just the beginning. That's where the fight starts. If that's as far as you can take it, then thank you for your participation, but please stand aside and support the ones who are willing to fight. I am 100% Antifa all the way. So right there in the Instagram post, and you can read the rest of this at theredelephants.com, the rest of his manifesto, right there in his Instagram post, he openly admits that he is 100% Antifa. Also, we have this other tweet from Andy No. He does great work over there. Breaking: Antifa shooting suspect Michael Renault was part of the Antifa protest outside Ted Wheeler's condo the night before he killed Aaron J. Danielson. He brought his 11-year-old child, who was armed with a bat, and this is what I was talking about here. He was close with Antifa Black Bloc. Antifa Black Bloc. I just want to remind you guys, as we're ending this, to follow me over there on DLive. This is where we will have the live show. It's dlive.tv/Vincent James. Also, make sure to check me out on Subscribestar and Patreon. This is where I will be posting for permanent access all of the full-length live streams that we do on DLive that are deleted from DLive after a day or so. Also, there's a bunch of exclusive content over there, so make sure to check out all the links in the description below, and we will see you over on those other platforms, including Parler. Make sure to check out Parler as well. God aids and protects the people he has chosen for his inheritance. Let us give thanks to him and proclaim his goodness. Lord, we trust in you. We pray for you, and know that we will enjoy your eternal consolation. In your goodness, have compassion. In your goodness, give and preserve the fruits of all earth, so that each day there may be bread enough for all. Graciously protect our nation from evil. Graciously protect our nation from evil. My goal is to eventually become a powerhouse of truth. That is why it is imperative that you check the links in the description below and go to either Patreon and Subscribestar and support us for at least the cost of a cup of coffee a month. We already have writers writing for theredelephants.com, but we'd like to bring on more in the near future. By the way, at theredelephants.com, you can also find t-shirts, hats, and other products. Check the links in the description below. It helps us out tremendously.